Hello, this is Tom from Sketchfab with a quick look at the newly released standalone de-lighting app from Agisoft. What's de-lighting? Well, if you've ever captured something using photogrammetry, you're not only capturing the object or subject in 3D, you're also capturing the lighting environment. And if you have a controlled lighting environment, you can obviously control the lighting of the object. But in some cases, you don't have control over the lighting and you will be capturing things that you don't want, for example, strong shadows. So for this quick demonstration, I'm using a 3D capture of a bust of Hercules from the Metropolitan Museum of Art in New York that I made some time ago. And here it is on Sketchfab. Currently it's lit. If I press the I key, I can jump into the model inspector, and right now I'm just looking at the base color. So this is just the color of the mesh with no additional lighting from the Sketchfab viewer, and you can see that there is some heavy shading underneath the chin. And if I turn it around, we can kind of get an idea from the light was coming from the direction of the camera. You can see kind of the shadow of the beard on the shoulder here. And at the back here, also there was, I believe, an overhead light, a skylight as well. So there's additional light there. So this is actually a tricky subject to de-light, and I'll just show you why it's important to de-light momentarily. If I switch back to the rendered view, and now we have some lighting from the Sketchfab viewer on the 3D model as well. If I hold the Alt key, click and drag the background, we can see that some shadows from the lighting are moving as we rotate the lighting environment. But those shadows that are baked in underneath the chin, or this hard line at the bottom here, or around the eye, are not moving. And so ideally, we would have a completely neutral 3D model so that we could put it into any lighting environment that we would want. So let's take a quick look at the tool and see how it works. You can download the tool from agisoft.com/downloads/installer, and it's just here, Texture De-Lighter. It's a free app for Windows, Mac and Linux. So here's a folder with my model in it, the 3D mesh, OBJ, texture file and a material file. And if I open the tool, this is what you'll see when you open up the tool. What we'll do is we'll make a bit of space by going up to View and closing the console. And I'm just going to widen out the view here. And you can now add your model either by going to the File menu, Import Model, or you can just click and drag the file onto the model pane, and it will import it. So there we go. Here we have our model of Hercules again. So zoom him in a bit. I'm also going to hide the trackball just so it's a bit easier to see. So how do we start de-lighting? Well, it's very simple actually. They've made it pretty easy to start this process. So if I spin down this chunk, we can see our 3D model there. It tells us that there's a 8K texture attached to it. I'll close it up again. And all we need to do is use these three palette tools at the top, a blue one, and a yellow one, and a green one. We're just going to look at the blue and the yellow for now, just because it's a quick look. And what we're going to do first is use the blue palette and select the pencil tool. And then all I'm going to do is paint onto the statue where the shadows are. And you don't actually have to be... let's use the erase tool. You don't actually have to be that particular. Just going to rotate it so I get a better view. I'm using a pen and tablet right now, which makes it a bit easier to navigate. So I'm going to paint in the eye here, hit space to switch back to the rotate tool. Just really generally, I'm going to be painting in shadowy areas on this object. We don't even have to cover complete areas. I read up, there's a great release post which we'll link to as well, detailing exactly how to use the tool. But essentially what we're doing right now is just painting areas of shadow. We can turn it upside down, indicate that the bottom of the statue is in shadow, this area for example. Very quickly. And now, I mean, from my understanding, this is not only is it indicating the colors of the texture that will be slightly darker than the model as if it was not lit, you're also kind of indicating the direction of the light as well. So that brow there. So I mean that's very rough, but it's given an indication. I'll do one more tiny bit there of where the shadowy areas are. And now we're going to use the yellow palette and do the same for the highlighted areas. So I'm just going to use this on some of the hair here because we, as I mentioned, the light is coming from the top. Jumping between using the spacebar, the rotate and the paint tool. In fact, if I rotate the camera, we can almost, again, like I was saying, where the light's coming from, we can more easily select the areas of highlight. Very general, not worrying too much. Oop. Unfortunately, there's no undo tool, so you have to manually use the erase tool if you accidentally paint bits that you don't want. This whole area. So it's starting to look a bit weird, but that's fine. There's some highlight there. And on this shoulder. Okay, as it's just a demo, I'm not going to take too long doing this. Okay, I'll leave it at that. So now we've indicated some areas of shade and some areas of highlight. You can switch off the paint view to see if you've missed any bits or you want to add more bits. And now you've got two options here. We'll just use the default tool settings for now, but the main actions you can choose are to preview your delighting of the texture, and when you preview it, it will downscale the texture by a factor of 4 to give you a faster example of what's going to be produced, or you can process the full res texture. Let's just preview this so we can see the difference. Just click preview, and this is saying that it will be about 1 minute, so I'll probably cut the video here and join back when it's finished. Okay, so the preview has finished processing. Now if I press this little pencil tool with the hide mark as well, we can get rid of the highlight and shadows that we've indicated. And this is a preview of the delit texture. So you can see, I mean, it's kind of weird to imagine being able to see an object without any light acting upon it, but you can essentially see here that the overall difference between highlights and lowlights has been evened out. There are some areas of very strong shadow, and I think this is a pretty extreme case for delighting, and I could go in and refine. There are many more options, and there's a link to the official Agisoft tutorial for this that explains some of the other options that you can keep tweaking, going back, adjusting your highlight and shadow maps. And then you can see in the left pane here that we have this new model, and we can jump back to the original model if we want to as well, because whichever model you have selected will then be processed if you work on it again. So what you could do is you could process the full resolution texture and then repeat the process on your output delit texture as well, to keep refining it if you wanted to as well. why that's not showing yet. There we go. If you are happy with this, you can simply go to Upload Model, with Sketchfab selected, put in your, choose the model data, title, description, paste in your API key. You can find that in your account settings. Choose whether you want this to be a private model and hit upload, and it will upload straight to Sketchfab. So essentially that's the quick look at the tool. It's very impressive. It's very easy to use, very intuitive, and I think with a bit of practice you can probably get some great results. And then once you've delit these textures, you can reuse that model in all kinds of different lighting environments, for renders, for games, for AR and VR. Makes it much more reusable as a 3D model. One final follow-up is to look at the models in a 3D viewer with lighting. So here are 3 models, versions of the 3D scan model on Sketchfab. Top left is the original texture, and then right and below are the delit texture, and at the bottom is the delit preview texture. So if I switch to just the base color, now this is just showing just the color texture file. There's no lighting, even though there's a background, no lighting on the model. And you can still see, I mentioned in the video that it was a tough model to delight. There's still some shadowing still in the delit texture from the really deep recesses, but it's definitely removed most of the general shadowing you can see on the hair. And if I switch back to the lit render, you can see how the shadow appears on the 2 delit textures. And then if I rotate the lighting environment, you can see how that looks for each of the different textures. One thing really to note is that if I look at the delit textures on the forehead, for example, there is a shadow in the original texture that's been removed very well, and like I say, other places as well. So I'll put a link to this model under the video, and you can compare the results for yourself. Thanks for watching.